Hammer is a tool, chainsaw is a tool, right? Your pot is a tool that you cook food in, right? Those are all tools. AI is just another tool that you need to use. It's a powerful tool. AI is just a tool that you want to use and leverage to make things more efficient.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Demand Dialogues. Good to have you all. And it is with great pleasure and an honor that I have with me the one and only Eric Herzog, almost the man, the myth. And we knew that Eric was going to come to us in a Hawaiian shirt. So thanks for joining us, Eric.
Great. Thank you, Peter. And thank you for having me.
So, we've talked a couple of times, but I've also kind of, looked back in your career. I've actually followed you for some time. You've got a very large online following, by the way. So congratulations on that part of your side career. And clearly, almost from the beginning, you've kind of evolved yourself through various types of organizations, various roles that you've had. Actually, when I first started in life, in my career, I was a product manager, a junior product manager, which I think was familiar territory for some of the early things that you did. Went into sales, ultimately through consulting, and eventually kind of worked my way back into kind of a marketing role. So I know you've gone through even a longer iteration in that journey. But as I look back, you've got some really high pedigree companies that you worked for. You've been with EMC, you've had a couple of stints at IBM, but to be fair, you've also had a bunch of career, if you will, in smaller companies, right? So you've had a mixture, I would say, of the large and the small. So kind of an opening question to you is, do you take learnings from each side? Clearly, my sense is, because I feel it myself, we're not a very big company ourselves, and you're working probably for what you would consider a relatively small company, Infinidat, in a sea where there's lots of big players. So do you see the evolution of marketing changing for small companies who can play in the big boy world? And have you learned things over your career that you would say for a smaller company, you actually can compete in a big boy world, as it were?
Yeah, well, I think, first of all, I should point out that the smart person is always learning. Even when you retire, if you're smart, you're still learning because the world changes, right? The AI revolution is only a couple years old. The impact of cyber threats on companies, again, only a couple of years old, where it's gone crazy now, right? It's not if a company will be attacked, whether you're big, medium, or small, it's when and how often. I mean, that's just the reality. So you need to be constantly in a learning phase. I learn things all the time. I focus my teams, whether it's been in the big companies like IBM or EMC, or small companies like Infinidat, or when I was at Tarman or Topio, on constantly learning new things. Okay, the world is changing. That's part of what IT in particular, because that's the segment I'm in, is B2B IT. It's all about change, right? If you've got an iPhone is more powerful than the first 10 generations of the IBM mainframe, right? And it's a phone, right? Or to go back to Star Trek, it's essentially the communicator with a little bit more juice than the communicator in the original Star Trek and Star Wars movies. So you always need to be learning, and you want people on your teams who are always willing to learn and be able to adapt and change. It's all about change. And I've done half my career in big Fortune 500 and the other half in startups. So you've got to be flexible and adaptable, and not everyone can do that, right? There's certain people that do really well in startups, and then let's say they get acquired, they go to the big company and they're out of there within a year because they can't function in a larger bureaucratic type area. Then you've got other people who can work at IBM, then go work at SAP, go work at Microsoft, right? And be successful. But you put them in a startup, they'll mess up the startup in 2 nanoseconds, right? Where's my secretary? Where's this? Where's that? Oh, well, wait, I got to do that by myself. Oh, wait, I got to fill out an expense report. Oh, wait, it's in Excel. It's not in some high-end software. Well, guess what? Not every startup can afford to have it. So you create, and I've done it before in startups, a very simple expense report so that the employees can expense things, particularly the sales team and the marketing guys who are running around talking to customers. And, if they want to get themselves some lunch with a customer, the company should pay for that, right? So the constant learning thing is a theme, and if you're not doing that, whether you're in a Fortune 500 company or whether you're in a startup, then that is not a good thing, and, it gives you self, if you will, you're putting your own obsolescence out there for the world to see.
Well, look, yeah, I think your career has shown resilience, right? You've gone through various battles, right? This is we're in a battle of sorts with technology, and I think we're all trying to figure that out. So I am curious to go a little further in terms of like your experiences at Infinidat. So I think you've been there for about 4 years or so, right?
Yep, just over 4.
Just over four, which would have meant that you joined pre ChatGPT, right? About a year or so before. And what would you say if you look at the first year versus last year or the current year? Have you seen maybe an increase in change now, impacting your department or your role or how marketing fits into an Infinidat and going to market?
So, we've always been adaptable. I came in and my job coming in was to fix it. That's why I got hired by the CEO. Marketing is broken, come in and fix it. And so the impact of AI in my world is like anything else, right? I came in to fix things. We fix things. AI comes out. We leverage AI technology. You be very careful with AI. If you do the wrong things, then you're exposing your internal IP, right? And now whatever you put out there, inadvertently, whether you're a public company or private company, you just told the whole world, right? And you may not want the world to know yet. Okay. Or it may be things that they shouldn't know, like financial things and other things. So you've got to be careful. So AI has its uses. I am big on trust but verify. AI can have hallucinations if it's not done right. So essentially give you wrong information. In fact, if you go back to some of the early uses of AI, which was in facial recognition, some companies, for example, right after I left IBM stopped. And the reason they stopped was they were using AI for facial recognition. They were selling that product to airports and other places, and it was inadvertently doing the wrong thing. Now, by the way, if you go through TSA in the United States and most of the countries in Europe, they take your picture. So that what was broken at the end of 2021 now has been resolved. But the key thing in using AI, whether you're using it for competitive analysis, whether you use it for content, whether you're using it to help with the buyer's journey or deal progression, is to make sure that it's not hallucinating, because then it's just as if someone told you the wrong information, right? So, when was the American Revolution? 1776. Okay. If someone told the American Revolution was 1742 or 1867, that's wrong data. But if you're a 5-year-old kid, someone can tell you that, and that's what you think, even though the point of fact is 1776. Or when, the first astronaut circled the Earth, right, with Sputnik, what year was that? And again, when you're younger, someone can give you information and it's wrong. So AI is the same thing. It's a learning process, just the way you learn. The issue is now AI is presenting that data to you, and you need to make sure that it's being used appropriately and you don't make mistakes, because it can make mistakes just like humans make mistakes. It's called a hallucination. So you want to use AI for things like content. You want to use it for competitive in particular. It's very good for competitive. You can use it for the buyer's journey. Okay, they came to our website 6 times. Oh, what did they really look at for the longest time? Now you could go in and do it yourself, but with AI, it come back and say, oh, it spent, it was in for 27 minutes on those multiple visits, and 20 minutes of the 27 was on the cybersecurity web pages. Okay, that's probably their interest. So you want to tweak the content that goes to them. The email, I just did a webinar, just got off before we started this meeting, and I've got another one at 10 o'clock this morning, California time, on cyber resilience and storage technology. Okay, so in that case, that person who'd been on the website for 27 minutes, 20 minutes of it, as identified by AI being on our cybersecurity pages, they should have been invited to that webinar automatically,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
That's the power of AI and how things change. The other bad part is some people think AI can replace everybody and you don't need people anymore and AI will just do everything for you. And if that happens, all I can say is the word is Skynet for those of you that love the Terminators. And that's not where we're at either. So it's a tool, right? A hammer is a tool, a chainsaw is a tool, right? Your pot is a tool that you cook food in, right? Those are all tools. AI is just another tool that you need to use. It's a powerful tool. Okay, just like a chainsaw can cut down big trees, it's a powerful tool versus trying to use a handsaw like you see in the old Western movies, right? Or any old movie about the 1800s and they show people logging or, or what they did with the farm, right? It wasn't a tractor, it was a horse pulling a plow. Okay. AI is now that tractor. That doesn't mean you still don't need to sow the field. You need to put right. You've got to put the seeds in. You've got to harvest. You've got to make sure that you're bug free, right? And disease free because plants get diseases just like humans do, right? So AI is just a tool that you want to use and leverage to make things more efficient, right? And to extend reach. And that's where it's a valuable tool.
Yeah, it is incredible though, considering what was available 2 years ago to what was a year ago to what is available currently. I say that there's just so many more tools available within the platforms now. So I think it's maybe in that context is that okay. So how do I decide which tools to use? How do I help prioritize myself? And maybe AI is the bit that you'd use to help prioritize yourself. I don't know, but I think it is amazing. And of course, with a company like yourself, Infinidat, um, AI is everything, right? As you said, there's bad actors coming after people all the time, and then there's bad bots coming after systems all the time. And being a part of that, I think is interesting to see how you stay on top of that as an organization. And I suspect you're probably having to have those conversations with your IT people and learn from those things and how you actually, again, bring that message back out to your sellers, making sure that they're on message.
Well, part of our one big things is cybersecurity, right? We are a high-end storage company. We sell mostly to the global Fortune 1000. That's the bulk of our customers. Some of the biggest customers on this planet are customers of Infinidat. And one of the reasons they buy us is not are we just storage to do all the stuff that storage does, keep your data, blah, 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 but we've infused in it a bunch of cyber. So I've done some articles that have been published in the IT press that AI is a tool, but AI is a tool of the bad guys as well as the good guys, right? So, you know, you can hammer things in wrong. So you got lousy carpenters building the house and the house falls down. Got a good but they're still using the same type of hammer, right? They bought it at the same hardware store or wherever they bought that hammer. They could even be using the same nails, but one is very well, very well, very well skilled carpenter, and the other one is, as we'd say in the States, a hack. And then the house falls down. So AI is one of those tools that the bad guys can use just like the good guys. So in those articles, and actually at the last year at the RSA show, which is the largest cybersecurity show in the world, around 50,000 people, I did an interview where I talked about you need to treat AI as another workload. AI is a workflow and a workload if you're in the enterprise now, right? So if you're going to use AI for supply chain or AI for any financial information or AI for your logistics support, right? If you're shipping products all over the world, so use AI to help you do that, it's just as vulnerable to attack as Oracle or SAP. It's the same thing. It's a workload. So if they can take a hold of that, the cyber criminals are going to take a hold of it, just like they are trying to get to your Oracle and your SAP and your Mongo Cassandra databases where you store all your valuable corporate information. So you need to make sure that as you're deploying AI, you do it in a way and you make sure that you've got cybersecurity technology that's not necessarily AI specific, but around it, right? So that if the bad guys use AI to try to do something evil, that the cybersecurity will detect it just the way it should detect things in Oracle or SQL. So I think, people look at AI as it's totally different. I would argue when the first mainframe came out, it was exponentially different. Okay. AI is growing dramatically because there's a much more tremendous investment, right,
Yeah.
in AI technology from startups, from big enterprises, from other places where people raise cash to do your AI software company. Okay. When the mainframe first came out, it was IBM only. And even guys who tried to clone IBM didn't do it for like almost 10 years. So in this case, you've got AI and you have AI for all kinds of things. There's all kinds of people pummeling me every day on AI and marketing. So that's AI in a marketing workflow. but they're doing the same thing to the CFO, the same thing to the VP of manufacturing, the same thing to the VP of engineering, right? So AI is basically a way to automate all these different applications and workflows and should be treated as such. So, you got to evaluate it, see what's good, what's not good.
Yeah.
The change is exponential. And by the way, existing vendors are implementing AI all the time too. So if you look at all the big marketing vendors, Marketo, which is now part of Adobe, Salesforce.com, Octopost, right? All these guys doing marketing stuff, they're embedding more AI into their existing packages. So you doesn't mean you have to go buy from a different software vendor. And the same thing in the finance side, same thing in the manufacturer, right? I mean, people are using software for all that stuff now. It's not done with a pencil and paper anymore. It's all done automatically. So if you're in the manufacturing side and you're using some manufacturing software, those manufacturing software vendors are starting to implement AI into the package. But there's also new companies that start. So you just have to do a careful evaluation whether you want to go with a new company or the existing company is adding the right AI that you need for your manufacturing, your supply chain, your finance, your marketing, whatever is the function in sales, right? Salesforce automation, now they're using AI inside it. But remember, Salesforce automation is an old concept, right? Automating the sales process, doing everything via computers, tracking everything, automatically sending thank you notes, automatically inviting them to stuff, all that sort of stuff. And now you're just using AI to make that Salesforce automation that much better, right? So Salesforce.com has publicly talked about leveraging AI into Salesforce.com, which already is the market leader in Salesforce automation, right? So they're not sitting there and no other vendor is either. Oracle, SAP, Microsoft, they're all implementing all kinds of AI across all the various software they have. So whatever your function is, a company, whether it's marketing, whether it's sales, whether it's manufacturing, finance, AI is being implemented into your existing vendors' solutions already, and there may be a new vendor that you want to go with that's doing it better, and that's what you need to evaluate on a continual basis.
So, Eric, as we talked about this a couple of times now, we've used the word tool in terms of terminology of what AI can be and how it could be used. There's plenty of these tools that are available to the individual in the organization, literally coming to their desktop, coming to their phones. And there may be a tendency for these individuals to take on the role, right, of having the AI tool help them be a better seller or a way to interact with their prospects. But that might not be consistent as a message to what the brand is trying to build through its tools. So, how do you govern the use of the messages, the way that people are using the tools internally, that they might be, going off on their own, so to speak? Do you see that as a challenge that we have to keep an eye on?
So that's going to happen anyway, whether there's AI or not AI. There's sales guys who always write their own scripts, right? So that ain't changing. All that AI does is make it easier for them. The key thing is marketing and sales need to be joined at the hip. As you know from my background, we've discussed it. I've been a CRO 4 times. When I was a CMO of the IBM storage division, roughly 7 billion, I was also the vice president of global channels, which was a sales job. So I'm a big believer that sales and marketing need to work together. And as long as they're joined to the hip, that won't happen as often. It's going to happen no matter what. And people have been doing it their own way, updating data sheets on their own, copying it, putting it into Word, PDFing it, and acting when it's different from the corporate one. So the AI makes it easier, but this is really all about discipline of sales and marketing work together as a team. I meet with our CIO, or our CRO, every single week. And I meet with his direct reports at least once a month and several of them several times a week. So when you do that, and my teams do the same thing, my field and channel marketing people work with our regions. Every week there's a weekly meeting, not to mention interaction. So this is all about business is a team sport. So you got to act that way. And if you act that way, then people running off and doing their own thing is light. I don't care what your sport is, basketball, football, American football, rugby, soccer, American baseball. These are all team sports. And if someone's off on their own, you don't win whatever is the championship trophy. That's not how it works. So it's the same way. The only difference is that the AI makes it easier for them. They're not taking a PDF data sheet, copying it, putting it into Word, blah, blah, blah. So it's easier for them to do. It's still bad behavior, whether they were doing it with AI or doing it the old way. And so that you stop by having teamwork between the sales and marketing team, constant interaction. And by the way, on your messaging, If you can't sell your own sales team, you're not probably going to sell the customer. So smart marketeers are always testing and talking to their own sales teams. What do you think? How does that sound? Da-da. And smart marketeers don't sit in an ivory tower. So when I was at EMC and IBM, for example, everyone on my marketing teams, except the most junior, was mandated to be 5 days a quarter, not counting trade shows, by the way, not counting trade shows, in the field with either channel partners or customers. And we tracked it. And if my directors and managers and senior weren't there, they got a talking to from me. Why weren't you in the field? Now, maybe if someone's sick or they had a baby or something, okay. But other than that, so ivory tower marketing is the worst thing. And a lot of marketeers are ivory tower. They look at the analyst reports, they look at a bunch of statistics, they never talk to customers, they never talk to their own sales team, and never talk to their channel partners. That's horrible marketing. And a lot of marketing people, that's exactly what they think they're doing. Business is a team sport. And your number one customer is actually your sales team, because they're in front of customers and partners all the time if you happen to use the channel. And smart marketing people should do it all the time. I do it all the time, and I insist all my managers do. Now, when I was in bigger companies, IBM, I had 70 people, EMC had 150. We literally tracked every single person. My director of marketing operations tracked it all, and not counting trade. And at a trade show, you usually talk to customers and partners too. So if we had 3 big trade shows in a quarter, I still demanded 5 days in the field with the EMC and the IBM sales teams and the partners, because if all you do is sit in your office, you don't learn squat about people by what their thinking process is. So that team sport aspect will help you avoid people trying to create their own messaging with their AI tool.
Do you do the inverse? Do you bring the salespeople into your marketing meetings? Do you use them to
Yes.
kind of drive the marketers? Yeah.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Because I think there's, I mean, clearly for smaller companies, right? You can probably do that. I don't know if it happened a lot in the IBMs and and the EMCs. You obviously forced that out, as you mentioned, for EMC. You kind of put them into the field and made that happen. But I agree with you. To me, I've actually said it for years that selling should be a team sport. I know you said business, and you've said that before, right? Business is a team sport, but winning as a team is a lot more fun than winning alone, actually. And certainly when you're losing, and we know in sales, right, you're not going to win them all. It's much better to lose as a team than to be losing on your own. So I think there's a need for that to happen. What do you think are the things that make that a viable, productive solution, right? When you're actually going out into the field and you're bringing these marketers and they're hearing the different impacts of what that message is. Do you think that can be improved, expanded, made more efficient with the new tools that are in the marketplace?
Well, the new tools can take a report from Joe, a report from Susie, a report from Juan, a report from Wing, and collaborate them so that instead of just getting so at EMC I had 150 people, and I insisted they go to the field, and I made sure I talked to all of them. That doesn't mean they talk to each other, right? Now, that said, here and at IBM and at EMC, I actually had a weekly marketing meeting, hour and a half every single week, and everyone was supposed to attend unless they were at a customer or if we had a trade show, right? So if the trade show interrupted, then, but every week we have one at 5:30 a.m. California time every week here at Infinidat. Did the same thing at EMC and the same thing at the idea there is that marketeers all need to work with each other. The thing I hate most is siloed marketing. The channel guys are doing this, the demand gen guys are doing that, the PR team is doing that. Marketing is a team sport, business is a team sport, sales is a team sport. I view a business that all sub-functions are teams. If you're building stuff, manufacturing is a team, supply chain is a team, logistics is a team, right? Part of getting stuff out the door. Engineering needs to be a team within himself. I mean, when you look at engineering, if you're building things, there could be hardware engineering, software engineering, engineering test, the engineering interface to manufacturing. So manufacturing engineering, which sometimes sits in manufacturing, sometimes sits in engineering, and transitioning that so you could build the new car or build the new high-end storage system. So every part of a business is, you will, a sub-team. The analogy that doesn't work for a lot of people, but works well if you're familiar with American football. There's an offensive team and a defensive team. Okay. And they're different players. Okay. So you've got really two main teams on one side and two main teams on the other side. Okay. Then within that, there's sub teams. There's multiple positions, right? There's the quarterback, the guy throwing the ball and pass off, the guys who run with the ball, guys who catch the ball in the field. There's guys that are blocking, trying to keep the quarterback protected. And on the defensive side, there's what's called the defensive line. They're trying to get in. You have the linebackers kind of in the middle. You have the defensive backs, and each one of them has their own coach in American football. And then there's a defensive coach and an offensive coach. And then there's a head coach. The best teams, are a combination of the best team with the best players. And there are American football players who are in what's called the Hall of Fame, right? So accolades beyond just what they did in a season, but their longevity, there's like 400 or 500 in the history of the game, which is over 100 years old, that are in that Hall of Fame. And there's plenty of them that they never won the championship. The reason was they were a great player, but their team sucked. And that's because the team often didn't work as a team. So businesses like that: sales, marketing, finance, HR, manufacturing, customer support. And even within sales, you've got sales, usually systems engineering and high tech, solutions architects. They're usually another team. Sometimes you have professional services, usually in a high tech. They all report up into sales, and often so does tech support, right? And customer service, right? So the CRO or the VP of sales owns all that. Well, you've got the salespeople, even in a tech company, are the less technical. Doesn't mean they're not technical, but compared to a sales guy selling tractors, let's say, okay, but they're not as technical as a system engineer, not as technical as a solution architect. Then you have tech support guys if there's a problem. So all those teams need to work together just within sales. And you got the same thing in marketing: channel marketing, technical marketing, solutions marketing, strategic marketing, alliances marketing if you work with other companies, right? If you have technical alliances like we do. I have a person whose job is alliance marketing, to work with people like Broadcom or Red Hat or Veeam or Microsoft or SAP or Oracle, which are all alliance partners of ours, right? Our stuff has to work with theirs. We do joint marketing stuff with Red Hat, the guys that do containers. We do joint marketing with all kinds of people. She coordinates that, but she has to make sure. And guess what? We do press releases with them. We've had press releases where we've had big, giant companies like Oracle or SAP quoted in our press release: tiny little Infinidat. We love Infinidat. Their products are great, blah, blah, blah. Well, guess what? That means my alliance person is working with my press release person, who happens to be working with our alliance manager, who's not in marketing, who coordinates those strategic relationships. That's what business is about. And every aspect of a business has sub-teams that all need to work together. You could have a very good offensive American football team that still doesn't win championship because the defense is bad, or the defense is great, the offense is bad. So sales has got to be good, marketing has got to be good, finance has got to be good, right? If you're building stuff, manufacturing, support and service. So all those teams eventually need to work together as a business. And a lot of people don't do that, and the sub-functions often don't. When marketing people don't do it, it drives me nuts.
I've always said, I've actually thought for a long time that account-based marketing is the perfect synergy to match up with what would be the classical solution sale or challenger sale of an enterprise salesperson, certainly in B2B, right? So it's almost like you talked about American football. I'll give you the other football analogy: soccer, whereby if you think of the striker, the forward in soccer or football, non-American football terms, they're traditionally the guys that are scoring goals or winning the deals, right? But if you bring a corner kick, if you're familiar with soccer, as I'm sure you are, a corner kick is a perfect analogy for me in terms of sporting, to equating it to what actually happens as if it is ABM, right? When there's a corner kick, it's not one guy in the box waiting for the ball to come in. It's usually 6 or 7. You're bringing up the defense, the midfielders, you're surrounding the salesperson with additional cavalry, all of the things that the marketing people need to surround the opportunity to try and score that goal to win that deal. So yeah, I actually really believe in that. The world of ABM to me has evolved to be the glue that holds marketing and sales even more closely aligned. And in order to do that, by the way, because you've mentioned all of these things, right? All of the channel marketing people, all of the field operations, all of the content generators, et cetera, et cetera. It's a lot of stuff to do, right? It's a lot of stuff to do. So I think you need a process around that as to what happens when there really are opportunities in the field, right?
Absolutely. Again, it's all about people understanding they all have to work together. Everyone has their strengths and weaknesses. Some people are good at a lot of things. Some people aren't. They may be godlike of this one function, and other people are semi-godlike of everything. They're kind of Hercules versus Zeus, right? So there's Zeus of one thing. Hercules was more of the, semi-god, whatever you want to call it, but he was a little good at everything, right? So you've got to make sure that you leverage the strengths of that team and that the team works with the other teams. Again, business is a number of sub teams that have to work together. And marketing within itself is often very functionalized. I don't believe that press and analyst relations should be separate from marketing. So I don't believe that comms and marketing are separate functions. They're not. They're the same. They're aspects of the same function. So I don't believe there should be a VP of corporate communications and a CMO. That's stupid. Well, if the VP of corporate communications reports to CMO, that's smart. So it's all coordinated, right? Between the PR team, the AR team, the product marketing team, the channel marketing team, the field marketing team, the solutions marketing team, the technical marketing, if they're not coordinated. So I'm a big believer in that level of coordination. That comms is essentially part of marketing. And it all needs to be tightly integrated together. And on the sales side, same thing. Support and service usually reports to the CRO for a reason, because they're the customer facing part of the company. So in this case, for B2B IT companies in particular, if a big global enterprise is having trouble with Microsoft Exchange, someone better take care of them or they'll go somewhere else, right? Because they could have 100,000 people using that software, right? So SAP, Oracle, same thing. Those are running the biggest companies in the world, whether they be a services company or a product company, right? Across all industries, right? Beer is a product, right? It goes through a factory. A friend of mine used to be the head brewmaster at Anheuser-Busch for the entire company. It was like $40 billion. A guy I went to college with, and he was running factories. He was doing what someone does for laptops, right? There's factories all over the world building these laptops, right? Dell, Lenovo, HP, all these people building, and they're built in a factory. Well, guess what? Beer that's not craft beer is brewed in a factory. Giant factories do all this stuff and make the beer for you, right? And some beer is better than others. But the point is, that's something that's not even high-tech IT, and that all those teams getting the hops, the barley, all that stuff, they've got to clean that equipment. It's got to be sanitized in all the, in the Western world, right? The United States, Europe, Japan, all that food industry is heavily regulated. Otherwise, people can get sick or die. So again, they all got to work together as a team to deliver product, right? On time, on budget. And of course, in the food industry, you want to have the best taste, the best tasting beer, the best tasting whatever it is, so that people will buy it. Otherwise, they won't buy it. It's like, oh, that beer's horrible. Why would you buy it? And they go out of business because no one wants to buy that beer. It's lousy, right? And IT is the same thing, right? Whether it's a software company or a systems company, it's about that solution driving both technical and business value. And the teams behind it, whether it's the marketing team, the sales team, the manufacturing team, the engineering team, better be working together. Otherwise, you don't fail. And by the way, the bigger you get, the harder it is to make people work together, right? But I've been pretty good at enforcing that in my 4 Fortune 500 companies that I worked at. And if they don't work as a team, I get rid of them. As they call it in the United States, it's called the bad apple in the clubhouse. The guy who's a great player or the woman who's a great player on a team sport, and all they do is complain about management, the coach. This guy dropped the ball. Oh my God, they didn't block the point. Oh my God, they were open at the net and they tried to hit it in the net and they missed. What an idiot. And they're a great player, right? They're going to be in the Hall of Fame, whatever that sport is. So you can't have bad apples in the clubhouse. And so if I had someone who wasn't going to work as a team, I freaking got rid of them. A couple warnings, and then you're not a team player. We do team play here. You're very, very good, but you need to go work at that other place and mess them up, right? Because you will find team players who are great players too, as an individual, if you know what I mean. You can.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, look, I think it's interesting. You've given a couple of examples where you've literally can't use the excuse of big companies work in silos. You've actually told us that no, you can actually in these sub teams, you can bring these people together and you force them to bring them together, and then they will collaborate. And just the human nature of that will actually have a better output. The On the flip side, for the smaller companies, right? Do you find yourself? Does your team find themselves doing more for less? Is this just the ongoing nature of change? Um, do you see a change in Infinidat's marketing mix over the next 12 months? Or do you think it's just largely as is, in terms of, these people are just having to do more?
Well, we've evolved. So when I first got here, they weren't doing any ABM, even though you're high-end enterprise. Anyone who's been in the high-end enterprise, whether it's systems, software, you're selling the global Fortune 500 in the IT side in particular, ABM's where it's at, right? You can advertise on the leading storage website, the leading database website, the leading networking website. Okay, that helps you a little bit, but that doesn't really help you, because if they're buying big networking gear like Cisco or Cisco's competitors, there's stuff that's over $1 million a unit and they need 27 units of it at one time. It's a $27 million purchase order. It's account-based marketing. Now, in a company as broad as has entry solutions, mid-range, and high-end, then they need broad-based marketing and ABM, and they need to reinforce each other where possible. But you're not gonna do ABM to Peter's Cigar Store and Herzog's Bar and Grill. You're just not. But you will do it to a global Fortune 500. And some of that, what I'll call air cover, like digital advertising, the press, can help impact it, but it's not gonna get you a $27 million purchase order. It's not gonna happen. Now, it could help you in a really small company. So it depends whether you're high end only, like what we are, or whether you've got a broad base. I would argue until Oracle bought a couple companies, they were high end only enterprise. They did not have an accounting package for $100 or $200 million company. That's not what they did, right? That Oracle stuff was all for the Fortune 1000. That's what it was. Then they acquired some companies, and now they've got stuff for small and medium companies too on the accounting side, and all the things that Oracle does for the largest companies in the world. Now they've got stuff that caters to mid-sized companies and small and medium business, but they had to buy those companies and then integrate them in. Other companies can design it on their own. So it really depends on how you're going to do that. But again, you've got to make sure, and ABM fits into that when you're high end and you're broad like that. You do ABM at the Fortune 1000, if you will, and there may be some specialty businesses. So, for example, if you're doing solutions catering to the entertainment industry, video editing, video production, digital camera stuff, and that includes both computers, storage. Obviously, the cameras themselves are now all digital. That's probably pretty ABM, right? Even though there are some Fortune 500s in that industry, but not a lot, right? The guys who were doing the movies is Lucasfilm. Right now, he became rich, but when he first was doing it, he was a poor schlub. But he was using very sophisticated technology to get that work done. So I would say that would be an ABM type sale, even though that's a small business. The video editing companies, most of them are small, right? The production companies that the big studios use, they often don't have it in-house. It's these small, very technically oriented, right? Doing movies and television and streaming is very technically sophisticated. When you watch on your TV, it's like, you're in the movie theater, it's like, "Oh, what it was," but behind the scenes, I used to be at a company that did high-end storage for video editing, and we had Playboy was a customer, Sports Illustrated was a customer, Time Warner was a customer, all these studios all over the world, right? We had a whole bunch of, customers in Bollywood in India, right? And they were mostly small customers, but to reach them was very ABM oriented because it's highly technical, highly sophisticated. They're not just sitting there like painting the Mona Lisa. They do it now all digitally, and they've been doing it that way since the late '70s, early '80s, like with the old Silicon Graphics and the original Macs were used by those, what I would call entertainment people versus the old days where they were sitting there handwriting their music, right? Or they're doing their painting. A lot of that stuff is done digitally. And I don't mean, having AI doing the acting, because I'm actually against that. You need real people to do the acting. But when you put the whole movie together, it's very technically sophisticated. That is an ABM market, even though it's not, guys building trucks and cars. But if they're building cars and trucks, that's definitely ABM, right? If you run some digital advertising on whatever it is that works for that industry, they're not going to buy you because they saw some digital advertising, right? You got to combine it. So again, to me, it's all about combining the marketing mix and reinforce everything. Everything needs to reinforce everything else.
Yeah, and I agree that I really believe that ABM is the tool that binds marketing and selling together, which helps to make it a team sport.
Right.
You still need your broad awareness, your branding, all of that stuff, which is a part of ABM, but maybe not the driving part.
Right.
And then when you get to the activation stage where you're trying to bring your sellers to be consistent with the message and to help them, ABM is the glue. I agree, and it's come back into vogue, I feel, and I think it'll continue to become more prevalent as we move forward. Certainly with all these tools coming out. So it's been great chatting. I have a couple of questions just to kind of
Sure.
put a personality on that Hawaiian shirt that you have, Eric,
Okay.
a little bit more. So if we were to say, other than Hawaii, where would your favorite places be? Give me, it doesn't have to be a top three, but three favorite places that you would love to visit again, or you haven't been before on your bucket list.
Okay. So obviously there's four because it's clearly Hawaii, Hawaii, and Hawaii. California, even though I live here, California is a huge state. I don't ski, but they've got, the tallest mountains in the continental United States are actually the Sierra Nevadas in California. It's not the Rockies. The Rockies are physically longer distance, but the height of the mountains is actually higher in California than it is in the Rockies. So, but we have beaches, right? We have the beaches in Northern California. We've got Napa. We've got San Diego. We have the entertainment industry located. So California definitely, because it's not going one place, it's going like everywhere from the sea to the snow and everywhere in between. Obviously New York, but I've been there a million times. So the New York area, not just New York City itself. So those are the three: California, the New York area, Hawaii. I do love Singapore, by the way. Internationally, it's just an incredible city. Lots of cities have value, but Singapore, just with the way everything is mixed, and the Asia mix with the European mix, and all the various cultures that are there. You can get great Indian food, great Chinese food, great Japanese food, and some of the best restaurants in the world are in Singapore, right? Not just Singaporean food. So those are the places I would say.
What do you do at the weekend? Because you seem to be working all the time, maybe 20 hours a day.
That is true, but the weekend is, doing seeing some sporting events, clearly barbecuing in the backyard with a nice cigar, some cab when the weather's good, and being in California, sometimes you can be doing that in the wintertime, right? When it's not raining. It'll be, 65, 70 Fahrenheit even in the winter sometimes. In fact, just last weekend, it was 76 degrees Fahrenheit, so I was barbecuing, smoking a cigar, and drinking some Napa Cab in the backyard. So those are the things that, are enjoyable and relaxing.
And your favorite foods?
So my favorite foods in no priority are Italian food. My mother's side is Italian. My great grandfather and grandmother, one was from Palermo, one was from Naples, so Southern Italian. So Italian food, Chinese food, and Japanese food are my three favorite kinds of food.
Had an amazing hibachi experience the weekend. So yeah, love Japanese food. It's great to have you on, Eric. I appreciate your input, your collaboration. I think there's a lot for us to learn from this. Clearly, what we know, business is a team sport. Marketing and selling is a team sport. And I don't think, well, I think what you've said, there is no option to that, right? It just, there is no alternative to that. And then AI can't take it over. You just have to use it as a tool to the best of your ability so that it helps you in that team sport, would be my takeaways from this conversation.
Yeah, I would say AI can make your team better. AI does not replace the team, but it can make the team more efficient. You could have a smaller team producing more because the AI tools help you optimize efficiencies and things like that. But if you think AI is going to take over and you can get rid of your entire marketing team or your entire sales team, your entire manufacturing team, well, then we really got Skynet, and we better watch out for the Terminator.
Eric, thanks for joining us.
Great, thank you very much.